Yeah, good afternoon, viewers at home. My name is Bio-Edutainment Michael. I'm the CEO of Omega Bio-Edutainment. Yes, today is another day to go into another course, which is titled Genetics and the Environment. Genetics and the Environment. Just like you will see from this topic, this topic is going to talk about genetics as a course. Then it's going to also talk about what the environment is. So, in other words, we are going to look at factors, what are the factors of genetic factors that can have influence on the environment, and what are those environmental factors that can also affect genetics as well. Yeah. What is genetics? We are going to start with defining what is genetics. Okay. Genetics is a branch of biology. It is a branch of biology, branch of biology, which deals with three important parts. Study of heredity, variation, heredity and variation, and other uh, genetic factors. So that means if we are talking of genetics, we are going to talk about it's going to be in threefold. It's going to be science of heredity, science of variation, and the study of gene, or the study of the origin of gene. And that's the reason why, in other words, genetics can also be defined as the scientific study of the origin of gene. Now, going to this aspect, what do we mean by heredity? Heredity is the study of factors or traits that can be passed from parents to the offspring, that can be passed from parents to the offspring. Whereas gene is another word that is DNA. So gene is a segment of a DNA. Then if we are talking of we are talking of variation. Variation in biology is quite different from variation that we have in mathematics. For example, if you are talking of variation in mathematics, so variation in mathematics will either be inverse or direct. Inverse or direct, that is mathematically. But in biology, the inverse here is actually talking about the differences. Differences. And what actually replaced direct variation here is the science of similarity. That is, so that is the reason why variation can be defined as the study of variation. Variation can be defined as the study of differences as well as a study of similarities. Don't forget that I told you that the very aspect of biology that deals with the study of gene is called genetics. So we are going to see this. Now, before we go on, there are basic key terms and terminologies that we have to get ourselves acquainted with. What are these key terms? The first one is a gene. So gene, just like you said, is a fundamental unit of DNA. is a fundamental unit of DNA. And don't forget that I told you that in another word, genes are major segments of DNA, major segment of DNA that code, major segment of DNA that code for functional traits. That is an aspect of DNA that code for a functional trait is known and regarded as the gene. Then another thing is that at this level, you are expected to have come across this word, DNA. DNA is the hereditary material. If you don't know it, DNA is the hereditary material. And at this point, you know that DNA has two strands. Is a two-stranded molecule. Two-stranded molecule in which one strand, from here to here is called the minor groove. Minor groove. Okay, and a complete turn of this groove is called the major groove. So if this one is A, so then from here to this place is B. So A is regarded as minor groove, whereas B is regarded as a major groove. So what do we have in DNA? What are the composition of DNA? DNA actually consists of four nucleotide bases. And what are these bases? These bases are cytosine, which is represented by C. The second one is guanine, which is represented by G. The third one is adenine, which is represented, the short form is A, and the last one is thymine, which stands for T. Okay, these are the nucleotide bases. DNA consists of, DNA is made up of the nucleotide bases. It also contains the phosphate group, okay. Then the backbone also consists of ribose, deoxyribose, that is the ribose. From this word, D actually stands for remover. D is a D is deoxyribose. D means remover of one oxygen atom, from a ribose sugar, and that is where it derives its function. It derives its name, deoxyribose. The ribose is a pentose sugar, that is 5 carbon sugar. Okay, this is carbon 1, carbon 2, 3, 4, then this one will be carbon 5. So removal of oxygen from this place is called deoxyribose. So that's why we said DNA, which is deoxyribose sugar, consists of the phosphate group, nucleotide bases, which are all these 5, and also ribose sugar, deoxyribose sugar. So that is DNA. So it is actually another short definition you can give to a DNA. Another short definition you can give to DNA is that DNA is the alphabet. Of life. Okay, nobody can actually speak English without knowing the alphabet of English. Nobody can actually speak any language without the alphabet of knowing the alphabet of that language. And that's the reason why, if you want to study biology, if you want to know genetics at all, that means you must know the alphabet of life, which is DNA. Although in some organisms like viruses, their hereditary material can either be DNA or it can be RNA. Don't forget that we are still considering the key terms and terminologies that will come across in this course. Just like I told you that this course is a kind of two courses that is interbred together. The first one is genetics, and the second aspect is environment. So we started with what is genetics, and that was where I define genetics to you for you as the branch of biology that actually deals with heredity, that deals with genes, and also deal with variation. And I told you that what do we mean by heredity? Heredity is just the science of knowing how traits or characters can be passed from parents to their offspring. Okay, then again, you must have come across this word, carrier. What do we mean when we talk about a carrier? A carrier is an individual. Is an individual that is heterozygous for a particular trait. That is heterozygous for a particular trait. Now, in this short definition of what a carrier is, you will still come across two very important keywords as well, which is heterozygous. What do we mean by heterozygous? Then traits. What do we mean by it? Anyway, the short definition of what is heterozygous could mean is that hetero means difference. Hetero means difference. Then zygous means from zygotes. That is, for example, e.g. for heterozygous character is like when you have if capital T represents tallness. Capital T represents tallness. That means heterozygous is going to be capital T, small t. So we will look at this one as this individual is a carrier. Of this hereditary traits. Now, another thing is, what do we mean by traits? A trait is simply regarded as character. Genetically, a character is regarded as a trait. Okay. Now, another thing is that we need to know, another word that we need to know is this word, chromosome. What do we mean by chromosome? Now, if you have a cell, like this, that cell must have its nucleus. So this part is the part that is made of cytoplasm, whereas here inside it consists of a nucleoplasm. I told you in my previous video what plasm actually means. Plasm comes from the word liquid. It means liquid. So cyto is cell. So it's like the liquid content of the cell is called the cytoplasm, and the liquid portion of the nucleus is where we have is what we call the nucleoplasm. Now, inside the nucleoplasm, what do we have? In eukaryotic organism, what we have is known as chromosome. What we have in that is known as chromosome. So chromosome now is when you had DNA plus protein, it is known as a chromosome. DNA plus protein is known as chromosome. And wherever you see the name of the chromosome that is surrounded, that surround DNA is known as histones. I want you to know this. The name of protein that you found in close proximity with DNA are called histones. And all these play very vital and fundamental roles in determining the hereditary character or the genetic character of any individual. We are going to see all this as we go on. Now I've defined for you what a carrier is. What do we mean by gene? Which I told you that is just a segment of DNA. Now, having known this, I thought, okay, having known what chromosome is, cytoplasm, nucleoplasm, then chromosome, which I said chromosome is the combination of DNA and protein. And the name of protein that we have in that around the chromosome is what we call histones. And I told you that heterozygous actually means difference, that is hetero. So the opposite of hetero is homozygous. Homo means same, such as when you have capital T, that means this individual is homozygous. If we have or small letter t, this individual is homozygous, compared to when you now have one capital and one small letter, that is heterozygous. So we continue to, then another thing is we want to look at what is an allele. You will always come across this word, allele. What do we mean by allele? Allele is the alternative form of a gene. The alternative form of a gene or of a trait. The alternative form of a gene or a trait is known as allele. For example here, when you look at tallness, that means that this is a trait. The opposite or the alternative, if this individual is not tall, how can we describe the opposite? That means the individual must be what? Must be short. So the allele for tallness is not going to be shortness. So that is what an allele is all about. Now, don't forget that this is first aspect of this course, which is genetics. So we have like 3 or 4 more genetical terms that we also need to get ourselves acquainted with. Then you also come across phenotype. The opposite of phenotype is a genotype. So phenotype is from physical. That is where you have observable expression. Physical, that is, which is observable expression of a trait. That is, those characters that you can see physically. For example, if you are talking about the tallness of an individual, it is what you can see. If you are talking about the skin color, it is what you can see. So all these together will come under phenotype. Whereas the genotypic ratio, this refers to the genetic composition. This has to do with genetic composition of an individual. So that is a genotype. So now the question is, why do we need to know about genetics? Don't forget that there must be reason for everything. Genetics will actually help us to be able to understand our environment. It's going to help us in medical research. It's going to help us in understanding how diseases are, how diseases occurs and how it can be treated. How diseases occur and how it can be treated. So we are going to dwell more on this as we also go on. So then also in this course, the other thing that we also need to know, we need to talk about, you also come across genomic content. Genomic content is such that the sum total of genetic composition of an individual, the sum total, that is, if you had all the genetic expression, all the genetic traits in an individual, that means you want to know the genomic content or the genome of that individual. So don't forget that I told you that already. Genetics is the study of gene, which is the origin of life. Okay, then you come across, just like I told you, that you come across some terms like multiple allele. Unlike the allele, I told you earlier on that allele is the alternative form of a trait. So the multiple, which I said, it is either if somebody is tall, the opposite of it is going to be short. However, they recognize that in human blood grouping system, it is either somebody has an allele for group A, or it has an allele for group B, or it doesn't have anything, which is group O. That is, so we are going to know more about the blood grouping system, but it is an example of what we call an allele. Then again, something that is also very, very common in genetics is we have to know the first law and second law of Mendel. Mendel is regarded as the father of genetics. So we have to know, at least we have to know the first law and the second of Mendel. So Mendelian traits, we look at it. There are some organisms, and there are some plants that they are regarded as Mendelian plants, because according to Mendel, they obey all the rules that was put forward by Mendel that time. So we have first law. This law is what is regarded as the law of segregation. So the second law is what is also known as which is law of independent assortment. We will go into detail of this as we proceed in this course. But at least for now, you should just know that Mendel trait or Mendelian law is divided into first law and second law. The first law is regarded as the law of segregation, or the law of germinal units. You will know the reason why it is being called germinal units as we go on. Then the law of independence assortment, which is also very, very important. We are going to know all this as we go. So there are some other organisms that they do not follow or obey the Mendelian law. So we are going to see all this as we go on. Non-Mendelian plants, so, or organisms. Non-Mendelian plants. Don't forget that Mendel actually makes use of garden pea as his own experimental plants in those days. So they confirmed immediately after, some centuries after, they also reconfirmed the law of Mendel, and that is what is still in operational up till today. So now, so that we won't go too much into genetics without talking about the environment. Don't forget that the two, they have interaction on each other. So we will still continue with this genetics aspect of it as we go on. But now let me also try and look at how does environment affect genetics. How does the environment affect genetics? So, and that one will lead us to what is the environment? What do we mean by the environment? Okay, so environment is the external factor, the sum total of external factors, which could be physical, it could be physical, then it could also be chemical. It could be physical, that is biotic. Physical is abiotic. Abiotic. So biotic, that is this one is a non-living component of the environment. It's known as physical. All this one like temperature, like humidity, and so on. So that one forms the physical aspect of it. And the biotic factor, these are the living components. The living components of the ecosystem is regarded as biotic factors. Then the other one, which include the chemical factors like population, pollutants and nutrients. We will look at all this under that. Don't forget, physical factors, I've told you that like the climate, the use of climate, the habitat, this will fall under physical. Then the biotic, which include how available do they have food, then what competition is also a very vital. So food availability, competition, and predation will actually determine how organism is going to be, the population of an organism in an area. So then the third aspect, which I said, it is composed of the chemical aspects, which include pollutants like harmful, toxic substances, toxic substances. All these will affect the genetic makeup. They will have influence on the genetic makeup of an individual. So don't forget that the environment, which I said it is an external factor, the external factor will lead us into what is going to be the genetic information of an individual, just like we will see, because at a point in time we have to be considering another one which has to do with mutation. All this will go a long way as determining the what is going to be this. So now let's now look at what are the application and objective of this course. How can we apply our knowledge in genetics to knowing more about the environment, knowing more about the physical component of the environment, the biotic factor, the biotic component of the environment, and how chemical composition of the environment can actually influence it. Don't forget that I told you that genetics, the genetic makeup of an individual determines exactly what is happening in the external environment of that individual. So these two, they will also interact with each other. So we will also consider this as we go on in this course. Now the next one is what are the application and basic objective of studying genetics with respect to their environment. as a student of biology who knows genetics and who is very conversant with what and how the environment actually affects this. So the first application of genetics and the environment, the first application of this course is going to be number one. It is being applied in the area of personalized medicine. It is being applied in the area of personalized medicine and healthcare. Yeah. Nowadays, this is the future, let me say the current trend in medical subjects in medicine now is what is called personalized medicine. That is a branch of medicine that is actually tailored. Is actually tailored to an individual. It is tailored to an individual. So another word is that it is an individualized medicine. It is an individualized medicine. That is, by our study, by our knowledge in genetics and how the environment can have impact in it, will determine how it can be applicable in personalized medicine. For example, just like I told you that personalized medicine, we see especially the use of what is called biological markers. Biological markers. Now, scientists have discovered that nowadays each cell, in other words, each gene, in other words, that is each DNA or the hereditary material, which I said, don't forget that I said that a gene is a segment of the DNA, and that segment of DNA must express a functional trait. It must express a functional trait. So now each marker or each DNA now has gotten what is called a marker. What do we mean by genetic marker? That is what differentiates individual A from individual B. Two identical twins that are from the same, that develop from the same zygote. That is a homozygote twins, which is identical. Now, two of them, they will have more than billions of differences at their genetic makeup, but each of them will have a marker. We have several markers that will define and determine their individuality. So because of our knowledge in genetics and the environment, it has actually helped us to be able to broaden our knowledge, to be able to tailor our knowledge of treatments of diseases, diagnosis of ailments, be able to tailor it to the use of biological markers for an individual, team. So it is a science. I told you it is science of knowing the individuality of a person. So it is our knowledge in genetics that will do that. Then another very important application of genetics is our knowledge in disease prevention. It will broaden our knowledge in diseases prevention and our knowledge about public health and our knowledge in public health. Okay, you will know very, very well that nowadays any misdiagnosed disease will be mistreated as well. So because we know, we have our very good knowledge in genetics, that one will help us to prevent so many diseases. For example, in trying to identify that some certain microorganisms or certain disease causing organisms, they have something that can actually trace them, in form of still on biomarkers as well, that can help us to be able to uh, control them. So it helps our disease prevention and control. Then number three is that it will assist us in agriculture and food security. It will assist us in agriculture and food security. Basic example of agricultural practice that employ genetics is plant breeding. That is, depending on the plant that you actually need, you can breed plants to your own individual taste. For example, you may be so interested in seeing or wanting to see ornamental plants that will grow around you. You can actually make use of your knowledge in genetics to be able to use it for plant breeding as well as in animal breeding. So all these are agricultural practices that actually employ genetics for us to be able to do this. You see, nowadays we now have animals that do better than in the past. Now you can have poultry, like, what's the name of this? Like broilers. That is, you don't need to rear all these animals forever. Within 3 months, you have broilers that will be as big as the one you can also that you used to rear in the past, like 3 years, 4 years, that even you will not be up to. So our knowledge in genetics will also help us in that. Then in the area of food security, don't forget that food insecurity is a major challenge in the whole world today. For example, in China that has, let me say, the most populous country in the whole world, a population that is more than 2 billion. So that means, where would they get food to be able to feed with the population that they have, 2 billion? So that means they must embrace genetics as a way of providing food security for his ever-growing population. So then, the other application or the other usefulness of genetics will be on using genetics in the way of conservation of natural resources. It will help us in area of conservation biology and wildlife management. Conservation biology and wildlife management. Okay, we often believe that we should not encourage deforestation. We should campaign against deforestation. That is irreversible removal of trees from our environment. And when you don't forget that, as an environmental biologist, you should cherish wildlife and you should be able to conserve life around, because that is the only way you are so sure that there's going to be balance in the ecosystem. Don't forget, as a human, this is ecosystem. Human, we occupy the apex of the ecosystem. Then plants will be the primary producers of everything. So this one will get energy from the sun and make use of carbon dioxide that you release into the environment. Is going to recycle this carbon dioxide and is going to be available for plants to be able to continue to produce food for. So in the area of conservation biology and wildlife management, genetics is very, very key in that area. Then it also helps us to be able to remove or reduce environmental pollution. Because if we are not so careful, don't forget that we said the environment shape our genetic makeup. The environment can shape our genetic makeup. That is telling us that if the environment is toxic, if there is pollution in the environment, at the end of the day, it is going down into our DNA, and our DNA will become so sick and so polluted to the level that is we are going to pass that same weak DNA into the next generation. So that is why we must be able to apply and be conversant that a polluted environment is so harmful and will be so harmful to the genetic makeup of an individual, genetic makeup of an individual. And another area is we also make use of genetics in what we call pharmacogenomics. Pharmacogenomics. Okay, anytime you come across pharmaco is actually talking about drugs, or drugs. That is the drug that we can make use of. That is a targeted genomics. Okay, that is with our knowledge in genetics, we can make use of our knowledge in genetics and be able to use it to produce different kind of drugs. And that is why what is reigning today is a drug design by the use of our knowledge in genetics. So then the last aspect which I want to actually talk about today, which I want to talk about in this perspective, is human evolution. It helps us to be able to understand about human evolution and anthropology. So don't forget that evolution, some of us, what we mean by evolution is just our development, that is human development with modification. So in this course, it is because two organisms cannot and can never be the same, and that is when we now come about variation. Don't forget that we said genetics is the study of variation, and I told you that variation is actually talking about the science of similarities and differences. Science of similarity and differences, and it is on these differences that will lead us into what is called mutation, which is a sudden change in the genetic makeup of an individual. So it is these differences that lead to mutation. Thereby, the mutation will now help us to get mutation is a powerful tool in evolution. Don't forget that I said evolution is the development or modification, development with modification. By our knowledge in genetics, especially in variation, that no two individual could be the same, is going to assist us to be able to unravel different types of mutation that can exist. So, for example, some people believe that albino, they are bastards, whereas we are going to see all this as we go on. But it is very possible for parents who are dark in complexion to also give birth to albino. It's not a mistake, but it is as a result of a sudden change in genetic makeup, which is has to do with mutation. Now, let's look at what are the objectives. We have seen the application of genetics and the environment, our knowledge in genetics and the environment. We have seen how it can be used in personalized medicine. Have you seen it in application in pharmacogenomics, and so on and so forth. But the question now is, what are the objectives? What are the objectives of this course? Number one, it is going to help us. The first one is it is going to give us a better understanding. It's going to assist us to better understand traits, how traits are inherited. How traits are inherited. For example, some people believe that maybe because their parents are not tall and they are short, that one will now say, oh, this I'm not the father or the mother of this person. Where is it coming from? No, because of our own knowledge in genetics, it will actually give us a better understanding that traits are inherited. Then it will also assist us. This course will assist us to be able to understand gene stroke environments. That's gene stroke environment interaction. How can they interact? How do they interact? So I told you that the gene and the environment, they will continually interact with each other to actually determine the genetic makeup of an individual. And the environment determines our lifestyle. The environment determines our lifestyle. It also determines the availability of food, and it can also be used in the curative medicine. So we are going to see one of the objectives of this is this. Then another very, very important, don't forget the two theories of evolution. The first one is Charles Darwin's postulate or theory. No longer postulate. Charles Darwin theory, which is generally referred as the theory of survival of the fittest, So, and survival of the fittest is what brings about competition. And when there is competition, that means that organism will be better, will adapt. So it is the theory of evolution that helps us to understand how fittest could be an individual into a new environment. That is a competition. Then the second theory of evolution, that is according to Jean Lamarck, which is fondly regarded as the theory of use and disuse. So we will be able to have a better understanding of this. So it's going to help us. Then I told you that for us to be able to diagnose our infection or diseases very, very well, our knowledge in gene environment relationship is going to go a long way to be able to do this. So another one is that it's going to inform us. This course will help us to be more informed. It's going to help us to be more informed in terms of the public policies of environmental management. It's going to help us, and it's going to help us to be able to be more informed about public policies and environmental conservation. Okay, we will see. Then it's going to help us to be able to promote. A healthier environment. It's going to help us to promote healthier environments. it is going to also help us to improve in disease diagnosis and treatment of diseases. It's going to help us in the area of improved diagnosis and diseases. Then again, this course will also assist us. It's going to assist us to be able to mitigate the impact of climate change. It's going to help us to be able to mitigate the effects of climate change and so on. Now, for today, just like I said, that today is just an introductory class about genetics and the environment. I have actually told you that genetics, the environment will have a long role to play in shaping the genetic makeup of an individual. And we actually started with knowing different types of genetic terminologies and so on and so forth. So in the other videos, which will be available shortly, I will be able to, I will expect more of to go into more details about this course. We go into considering the fundamental of genetics. That is, we actually want to know what actually make up genetics, where we'll be considering DNA structure and its function. Then we'll go more and understand more about gene and allele. We look at inheritance pattern in some individual organisms, and we will conclude that lecture with genetic variability and understanding different types of mutation and so on and so forth. I want to believe that today we have been able to be more to the basis about how environment can actually affect genetics. So I expect you to subscribe, like, and make a comment to this video. Thank you.